I'd like to introduce you to a new editor, so kind of advancing from idle. This will do the same thing. If you don't feel like getting brave and trying something new, you don't have to. But I've been using this will be using this in examples from this week's module, so I thought I would introduce you to what it was I was using. This is a Microsoft product. It's absolutely free. It's called Visual Studio Code. If you've heard of Visual Studio, these are two different things, even though the names sound very familiar. And you'll be using Visual Studio if you take the C# class. This is not Visual Studio. This is Visual Studio Code, which is a lightweight version of Visual Studio. Visual Studio isn't free. It is free to you as a student. Visual Studio Code is free to the entire world. So, that's a mouthful. Visual Studio Code is what I'm going to be using in my videos this week, and you can download it either for a Mac or for a PC. It's compatible with both, so you're not going to be handcuffed if you want to choose that. So obviously you're going to download it, and once you download it, I will show you what it is that you're going to be looking at. All right, so this is Visual Studio Code, and this is what you'll see when you first get started. Kind of common. You're going to have a welcome screen, which you can keep or not keep, and here's recent files and some more information, but I'm going to skip that for now, and you can peruse that in your own free time. So what I want to introduce you to is this pane and how things work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose File, and I'm going to not open a file, but I'm going to open a folder. And what I'll do is I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and in my desktop I've created a folder that's called Driver's License. So I did this before I started the video. I figured you know how to do that already. And I'm going to select that folder. And now what you'll see is in that folder I already have this tickets.txt file, which is a text file that you'll be using for your homework assignment in this module. And so tickets.txt file already exists, and so now I'll be able to see that file. That's awesome and cool, fantastic. If you're not seeing this pane, it's available by clicking on the Explorer icon right here. So that toggles it on and off. There it is. So this is my folder. This is my files. All of the files that are in this folder will show up here in this drop down. If I don't have this file open, it'll go away from Open Editors. So Open Editors is just currently what files do you have open, so we can see more than one at a time if we'd like. And so what's going to happen when you do this the first time is I can create a new file right here, which will automatically put that file into this folder. And so I'm going to call this one Driver's License, license.py. And when I hit save, you're going to see a pop-up here for the first time you run this. And this pop-up is saying, hey, I'm recognizing that you're going to want to use Python. And it wants to install what's called a plugin, which is optional software that's available to add on to Visual Studio Code that makes your life easier. So I would definitely choose the recommendations and click on install in this case. Python extension is a good one to have. If you click install, it'll work, but I'm going to show you, I'm going to eliminate this for the moment and take you back to where you would go. For example, let's say I start writing print. Nothing really cool is happening. This kind of looks like idle. It's no big deal, and nothing really exciting is happening, and I would agree there. So whatever. All right, so I'm going to erase that for a moment. Remember this little recommendations that you saw down here? Well, that'll also show up here in this extensions box. So this extensions box is exactly that. Extensions is the name that is given to anything that has been added on or is currently installed. So Python is not currently installed here as part I have C# installed and Java extension, but I don't have Python, and that was why I got this recommendation down here. So I can click on install, and I would recommend that you do. And go ahead and install it, and I get all this fancy stuff, and I have this little arrow letting me know that it's trying to install. You can read through this if you want to learn a little bit more about it. I'm just going to click away, and ideally that's going to come. Got a slow internet connection, so I'm going to wait patiently. I'm going to put this on pause while I wait for this to finish installing. I will be right back. All right, I have a slow internet connection, so that took a little bit of time. Hopefully yours takes quicker. Now that it's installed, it's asking me to hit reload to activate, so I'm going to reload Visual Studio. And now I see that Python is installed. So why did we go through that effort? Well, now linter is not something I'm going to deal with at the moment, so I'm going to disable linting. We can deal with that another time. So I'm going to type in print now, maybe spell it correctly, and you'll start to see you have what's called IntelliSense. So there's a little bit more information available to you when we are using, when we've installed Python extension, and you can see that it's trying to give you some ideas of what print is expecting. And so we're going to get, and you've seen these maybe in some of my videos, but you're going to see more and more ideas or suggestions to help you remember the syntax of the language. So now it's trying to give me some clues on what else I can add in print, what sort of arguments print wants me to send. So I'm going to type in hello world. Fantastic. Okay. Now you'll start to see this, I have a circle here. Circle indicates that I haven't saved my file. So I can hit Control S for save or file and save, depending on if you're a keyboard or a clicker. I'm currently here in this extensions icon. So if I want to go back to that Explorer window, remember that I'm going to go here to this icon. And so now I can see that I've got this driver's license PY file. And if I look in my desktop, I'll see that in that folder, I've got 2 files now. So that's kind of nice. The other nice thing about doing it this way is I can see 2 files side by side. So if I want to take, you've got this split editor, which will also do the same thing as what I'm about to do, but I'm going to click and drag this file. You can see the light shaded areas. So I want to drag it, sideways so that I can see these 2 side by side. And that's going to come in handy when I'm trying to do editing, when I'm trying to input perhaps to see if I have a matching. In part of your assignment, you're going to check to see if there's a matching license number that is a match with one of these. So it's nice when I'm testing my code to see if that actually exists. So it's nice sometimes to see 2 files side by side, especially since this chapter we're going to be reading in from this text file. All right, so how do I run this? Well, this is a little different than we've done before, but it's okay. So I'm going to close this just for real estate. Just remember you can open and close that. And in order to run your file, to display this driver's license and display it, what we're going to do is on this view menu, I'm going to choose view and then about halfway down, integrated terminal. So I'm going to click on that. Or if you're a keyboard person, the control and backtick. So that's going to put this window down here. Now for those of you who are used to command line, this should look very familiar to you. If you are not sure what a command line is, this is a good place to start getting comfortable with it because it's a good skill to have as you become more and more programmer, whatever the right word is. As you develop your skills as a programmer, there's the fancy word. All right, so first of all, you should recognize, if you haven't ever been here, that this is the current path of where my driver's license folder is. It's in my C drive, it's in my users folder, it's in my Markle folder, it's on the desktop. And then there's my folder called driver's license. And then this little rectangle is sitting there waiting for input. It's waiting for a command. And so the way I run this is I have to make sure I'm in the folder, which I am. I'm in the driver's license folder here. And in my driver's license folder is this driver's license PY. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type the word Python. I spelled it correctly. There we go. Python. And then the name of the file, drivers. And it's important that I spell it correctly. And then I have to add the .py portion. So the command is Python, in other words, run the Python compiler, and then there's the file that you're going to send to that compiler. So when I hit enter now on my keyboard, it's going to tell me that I didn't spell my file properly, probably drivers. Yep. So I'm going to type it again. As I even said to make sure you spell it correctly, I spelled it wrong. driverslicense.py. And there we go. And so now I see my output right here. So it's very nice to be able to, I'm just going to make a change real quick. My dot turned, so I'm going to Control S to save it. Then I can come down here and click, and instead of typing that all in again, I can use my up arrow on my keyboard, which will go through all of the last commands that I've typed. So it's a nice way to toggle through, well, there's the one I typed in correctly, and here's the one I typed incorrectly. So use that arrow up key so you don't have to keep retyping things, and then hit enter, and now I can see that I made that change. So this is a nice way to be able to interact with your code. You get some feedback now, and things look, you get a little bit more, you'll get a little bit more information. Let's say I spelled something wrong. Let's say I spelled print P-R-I. Well, you can see now I've also got some color coordinating going on. So because I've got white, that tells me that I might have a syntax error. So I didn't recognize it. Let me just put something in there. Oops. And I'm going to save that. I didn't recognize that my color code was incorrect, that should have been yellow, but now it's not. So I'm going to go ahead and run it, and I still get that syntax error that we've seen before when we've run idle. So this part stays the same, but we get a little bit more clues ahead of time. You'll start to see that depending on your theme, your color codes might look a little different, but anytime we have a word that it's recognized, mine's turning out to be yellow, and then the string is always going to be in this red. So you'll start to recognize syntax errors from the coloring, as well as you still get this normal feedback. So make sure you save. There's my dot changed to an X. Now I know I've saved. I can hit my arrow up key and run that again, and there you go. So I would recommend you start getting used to this editor. It's a good way to start advancing your skills. Idle was great in the beginning because it forced you to remember syntax and it forced you to type in things, but now you're a little bit more advanced. You can have a little extra tools at your tool belt, and I think you'll enjoy using Visual Studio Code. Remember, not Visual Studio, but Visual Studio Code as a step up to, hey, I've earned it. I get that badge and I get to move up to a little bit more advanced editor. So hopefully you enjoy it.